ground shake.
Hey, what is up everybody? This is Sypher today, and if you've clicked on the title, you're probably wondering why MW4 is screwed, but I'm just doing that to kind of make it more popular. But actually, it's Activision is the main problem here in this video. We're going to talk about 3 topics today. The first topic isn't really that big of a deal, but I just want to talk about it because it kind of supports what's been happening to Activision over the past years, and I think we need to understand that companies like this will eventually get worse and worse and worse, progressively, or they'll do things that is really bad in the perspective of the people that they sell their product to, or just a general overview of the entire company. Now, as I'm recording this video, actually the Super Bowl is going on, so yay for me. I'm not really big into sports, but it's whatever. I'm voting for the Rams. Obviously this will be uploaded after the Super Bowl, so if the Rams lose or they win, yay if they win, and if they lose, well, oh well, I guess. I don't know. But I think that there is one thing though that we need to understand about Activision is that they're a really huge company. And when people think of huge companies, they never think in their heads they're never gonna fall. That's actually a lie. In reality, these big companies, make the biggest mistakes and will fall eventually, and they'll make the biggest falls ever. But that's not what we're talking about right now. So what I want to say is that Blizzard is a part of Activision now. They're like contracted together, like it's Activision and Blizzard Publishing Inc. or whatever, I don't know, which is pretty weird considering that. But if you haven't noticed, a lot of my friends have noticed this because they play Overwatch, and I don't. I personally don't kind of like that aspect of gaming, that kind of shooter, where it's just not my kind of thing. I don't mind, playing one of those games that much, but I definitely don't play Overwatch at all, besides on my friend's house. So I haven't really noticed this, but I've been talking a lot to my friends lately, and they've been telling me that Overwatch is becoming less creative based and more microtransactions based. Like they've been adding tons and tons more microtransactions over the years since Overwatch has been released. Added tons of more exclusive items to loot boxes. There's no longer cool ones that you can get for whatever. And they've just been saying that there's a lot more emphasis on the loot crate system than it was before, which was a more fun, creative, awesome game. And now it's just been more focused on loot boxes, which is kind of sucks because that's what Overwatch was. It wasn't made for that. When it first came out, it was more of a awesome shooter with a kind of side loot crate system to get some cool skins, I guess. But now there's a lot more emphasis on it than there was in the beginning, which is upsetting because this is probably from Activision telling Blizzard, you need to put more microtransactions. We're not getting enough out of this game, so add more microtransactions. It's just kind of stupid that you think that they would be doing this, but honestly, Activision's been doing lots of stuff recently that isn't that good at all. So it's kind of saddening to see Overwatch kind of declining because of Activision forcing microtransactions down the players of Overwatch's throats. Like if it's the only thing that is good about the game, they're like, this awesome game they released, that was fun to play with like barely many microtransactions emphasis. Now we're just gonna take microtransactions and make that the main focus of the game. That's literally what they did. And it's the same thing that they did with Black Ops 4. Microtransactions weren't in the game for like a month, after everyone reviewed the game, and then guess what happened? A month later, they updated it, and it all came to microtransactions. One thing, though, that I will say is that's better about the microtransactions in this game compared to any other Call of Duty or any game right now on the market is that you buy COD points for a low, relatively high price, depending on which packs you buy. But the stuff that you get, I would say, is a lot more useful. Like, it's a lot more cooler. Like, you can buy directly that skin. Like, you're going to get that skin when you purchase it. It's not like Black Ops 3 where you have to purchase 10 freaking supply crates to get something. It's like, what you see there, that's what you're getting. That's what I like. It's kind of like the old microtransactions, quote-unquote, of Black Ops 2 or any older Call of Duty camo with the camos, Like, you see that camo, that's what you're getting for, like, $3.99 or whatever. The only thing is that the things are a little bit overpriced for what they're giving you in packages. For example, the camos, it's like 200 COD points for one camo. Kind of expensive if you ask me. That's $2. I think even at one point they were actually $3, but I think they bumped it down to $2. because people are complaining. It's like $3 isn't worth it, you know, which really it isn't. There's nothing really too big that is really worth buying unless you're like oh, I need to have everything in the dang game thing. You know, you don't need to purchase tiers anymore. You're only doing 100 tiers, and at least if you skip if you get 2 tiers a day for the amount of time that it is, which is 75 days, you're definitely gonna overpass that 100 tiers. Right now I'm at tier like 190, 180, 194, something like that. I'm pretty high up there. But you see what I did? You see what I mean is that they added microtransactions after everybody reviewed the game and everyone was happy about the game. You know, of course the game is still being polished though. You know, they've just added camos to Blackout and to Zombies finally. Dear Jesus, it took them like 3 months just to get that simple thing in there, and even Factions hasn't even been introduced yet. So I don't know when that's coming out. I really don't. I mean, whatever. Just take your time, Treyarch and Activision. Take your time. Take your sweet time. But the next thing I want to talk about is Destiny. As you guys well know, that Destiny and Activision split. They broke their 10-year contract, which there isn't anything illegal about that at all. There really isn't. As long as both parties are in support of breaking a contract and they both legally signed to break the contract, there really is nothing illegal about the separation. And a lot of people have been talking about this like separation for years now, because I think a year after Destiny came out, there's already infighting between Activision and Bungie, and that was that the only reason why Bungie signed the deal with Activision was so that they could get their game more into the gaming community, you know, because if they just did Bungie by themselves, I don't think Bungie had the resources and or the money to support a big project with Destiny and DLC alone. So I think what they did is that they brought this cool idea and a basis of this game to Activision. Activision and them signed a 10-year contract, and instantly they saw problems, because this is when Activision was like, microtransactions, let's put this in every single game. And so they were wanting Destiny to have lots of microtransactions, and plus releasing big content or games annually, so like every year. This is why DLCs came out so fast, like when the game was being published, is because Activision was like, you need to be releasing DLC constantly, and these microtransactions need to be in the game. And that was a problem with Destiny 1 I didn't like, is that they're just shoving too much things down your throat to purchase so Activision and Bungie could get more money. And obviously Bungie was not in support of this, because they were complaining to Activision, just saying, we don't have the time to be making this much content with this much story involved and then this much that we're taking in of making new exciting weapons, new exciting classes and all this stuff. So even I believe Destiny 2 was rebooted 18 months before the game was released due to a lack of microtransactions. Activision told them, we cannot publish this game unless there's more microtransactions, so they had to completely reboot the whole game just for microtransactions. Just because Activision higher-ups said you don't have enough microtransactions. So what did Bungie have to go do? Add microtransactions that have nothing to do with the storyline, are completely useless, and are just there for money purposes. There is really nothing else about the microtransaction in Destiny 2. They're just boring cash cows. And this is what Activision wanted out of Destiny. They wanted this to be like the Call of Duty franchise, a annually cash cowed game. You know, the season passes weren't we're not complaining that season passes are bad. We're just complaining that you're putting too much emphasis on it. You know, you're not making the games perfect when they're released so that we feel good buying the map packs or the season pass. For example, the Black Ops 1, it came with 3 zombies maps on disc alone, and like tons of great awesome maps, and content was fun in that game, and campaign was polished. Now all they care is releasing some few maps that are good in the standard multiplayer, and the rest of them suck, and then they put all of the good maps in the DLCs, forcing you to buy them. And they give you like 1 or 2 zombie maps on day 1 disc if you're lucky. And even then, usually only one of those out of those 2 maps is even half good, or even relatively good to play for the player. You see where I'm going here, is that they're adding all the good stuff later, not in the beginning, so that you feel good purchasing more content for a game. They're doing it backwards. You see where Activision is going here, is that they just want cash, and that's all they want. And I'm sorry to say this, but that's really it. That's the only thing I can think of that they're really voting for. And it's just amazing. And also, I believe when they split, that it was said that big companies and investors said that they're going to lose like $300 million. Activision, $300 million that is not in their pocket coming from Destiny and their franchise. Will Destiny make better games? I have no idea. But $300 million is not in Activision's wallet. So what does that happen when $300 million just loses in a company? Well, first of all, your investors are going to be feeling less likely to invest in your company. So what does this happen? Stock prices plummeted, and they really did. I believe they plummeted for like a week by like the highest number in since like Infinite Warfare was being released, which was like -8%. In decrease, not increase, decrease of 8%. It's now gone up to like a 3%, like a -3%, due to blackout being more extensive, and also the CWL, or the Call of Duty, the Call of Duty World League is now being played. It's having more investors into the company of Activision due to investors for Treyarch. So, because you can't just invest indefinitely in Treyarch, you have to invest in an entire company, which is Activision. Which isn't bad. That's normal to see stock prices plummet like that when you lose part of your company. So that's normal. Now, the rumor that's been floating around due to this is that there is a bit of investor fraud. Now, if you don't know what that is, this means it's like, for example, if Activision has stock or knows people that own stock, and they know that a split is going to be coming, or that their stock prices are going to plummet, what they do is that they take their stock, or they tell other investors' stock to sell it off completely before this happens. So for example, if you're gonna get like 800 out of stock at this point before it plummets, what they'll do is they'll sell it for that 800 and then not invest, and then see it plummet. So the person who just bought it pays it for 800 expecting it to go up, and then it just immediately goes down. And a lot of investors and a lot of big companies have been wanting an investigation, and an investigation will happen because a lot of investors and big companies have been talking about this on the sidelines. If you've been reading tons of reports on the side, like articles and stuff about investors, investments, and Activision as a whole. So an investigation will happen. Now, if there is minor evidence of investor fraud, the whole company could collapse. Investors are gonna lose interest in the company, and stock is going to plummet. They're not going to have any resources to make content. So literally, Activision could shut down. It could literally be gone if there is any evidence of investor fraud. And no one is talking about this. It's amazing. And no one is talking about this. They're only talking about how they split, Destiny and Activision split. And they're not talking about the bigger picture here, is that there is investor fraud. This is the end of Activision. This is the end of Call of Duty. This is the end of Overwatch. Those names will be on the table to purchase. And whichever company buys them, they will own them. If it's EA, if it's 2K, if it's for God knows who else will purchase them. Or they could just never be lived again. It could be all gone. All of the old Call of Duties, all of the multiplayer servers will probably be gone too. So this means online play will be no longer accessible, since the servers are owned by the individual companies and Activision as a whole. So really, could be the end of Call of Duty, and this is why Modern Warfare 4 is so screwed, because even if investor fraud is found out even before it's released, it's done. There's nothing else you could do. The company will shut down, and if they do have the chance to put back MW4, this doesn't mean they're going to make up their money. It really doesn't. Unless they sell like over 500 million sales, which 500 million sales within the first days is a low sell point for Activision. They need to sell like a billion copies to even make up a little bit of investments. So as you guys can see here, this is the bigger picture, and this is why MW4 is going to be screwed if there is any involvement of investor fraud. And this is amazing that no one has been talking about this. I only know one other person who's talked about this, and that's because he's been reading articles, and he's also a lawyer. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that's how investor fraud works, because I know a lot of friends who invest, and I also want to invest myself, but I'm learning about investing. So if this does come true, that if they do find, because an investigation will happen, it's a big company, they're gonna do it. If an investigation comes back as there was investor fraud, Activision is screwed. The whole company is screwed. And this means MW4 will be screwed. So, if you're really worried about this now, because you should be, if you're on your edge of your seat right now wanting to look in more into this, you should, because this is a big issue that's about to become a bigger issue in this coming 2019 year. Because they're going to start an investigation probably within this month or in the next couple months of investor fraud, and they're going to investigate for a couple months. So you got to keep this in mind, that it's going to be probably the news of 2019. So keep in mind for that, and keep an eye out for it as well. So I just want to thank you guys, to everybody who's been watching my videos lately. I know I usually never release videos this close together, but I did want to get this big news out to you guys before it actually something does go wrong and something happens. Okay, so I really want you to be scared right now and think about what's going to happen to Activision as a company as a whole. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. Click the cards, you know, that will be in the outro, and I hope to see you guys on the next video. Peace out.